Christmas Eve came dressed in silence for Ethan Crow, the kind of silence that pressed against his ears harder than noise ever could. The city outside his penthouse window glittered, like 1,000 promises, kept for other people, not for him. Snow drifted down in lazy spirals, catching the neon lights and turning them soft, almost forgiving. But nothing softened the ache in his chest. Ethan Crow, CEO of Crow Dynamics, youngest billionaire on every magazine cover. The man reporters called ruthless, brilliant, untouchable, sat alone at a long dining table set for 6 and empty for 1. The plates gleamed untouched. The roasted turkey cooled. Candles burned low, their wax bending like tired soldiers. Every year he told himself this loneliness was a choice, a price paid for greatness. Every year Christmas Eve proved him a liar. He loosened his tie, stared at the framed photo. On the far wall, a woman with warm eyes and a laugh frozen mid-moment, and felt the familiar collapse inside. "I tried," he whispered to the room, to the memory of his wife, Claire, who had died 3 winters ago on a night that also smelled of snow and regret. He tried to drown the ache with work, with acquisitions and speeches and charity galas, but grief was patient. It waited for nights like this. When the clock chimed 7, Ethan stood abruptly, grabbed his coat, and left the penthouse. His driver had been dismissed early. Tonight he wanted no witnesses to the fracture in his composure. Down in the lobby, the doorman wished him a Merry Christmas. Ethan nodded without meeting his eyes and stepped into the cold. He walked, aimless at first, letting the snow sting his cheeks, until the city thinned into quieter streets where storefronts were dark and wreaths hung like echoes of joy. He stopped in front of a small community center, its windows glowing amber. Laughter drifted out, children's voices rising and falling like bells. A sign taped to the door read, "Christmas Eve dinner, all welcome." Ethan scoffed at the word welcome, but his feet betrayed him. He pushed the door open and was met by warmth, the smell of soup and cinnamon, and a dozen surprised faces. Volunteers moved about with ladles and plates. A woman with tired eyes but a kind smile approached him. "Sir, are you okay?" she asked. The question cracked something loose. Ethan swallowed, nodded too quickly, and retreated. "Sorry," he muttered, backing out into the cold, the door closing softly behind him as if not to shame him further. His breath came fast. He leaned against the brick wall, pressed his forehead to it, and let the tears come, hot and humiliating, cutting tracks through the cold. That was when he heard a small voice behind him, gentle and certain like it had practiced courage. "Don't cry, mister." Ethan turned, startled, wiping his face with the back of his glove. A little girl stood there, no more than 6 or 7, bundled in a red coat too big for her, a knit hat slipping over one eye. She held a paper bag with a candy cane drawn on it. Her eyes were enormous and earnest. "You can borrow my mom," she said, nodding toward the glowing windows. Ethan blinked, sure grief had finally tipped him into hallucination. "Borrow? Your mom?" He repeated the words, absurd and anchoring all at once. The girl nodded again, solemn. "She's really good at fixing sad," she explained. "She makes soup and listens. And she doesn't yell." She paused, then added thoughtfully, "Unless the soup burns?" A laugh escaped Ethan before he could stop it, short, broken but real. The girl smiled like she'd won something. "I'm Lily," she said, offering her mittened hand. Ethan hesitated, then shook it. "Ethan," he replied, his voice rough. "Why are you out here alone on Christmas Eve, Ethan?" Lily asked, tilting her head. He considered a dozen answers and chose the truest one. "I lost someone," he said. Lily absorbed this with the seriousness of a child who knows loss isn't an abstract thing. "My dad's in heaven," she said quietly. "Mom says he's helping Santa." She leaned closer, conspiratorial. "Sometimes heaven helpers get tired too." Ethan felt the sting again. Before he could protest, Lily grabbed his sleeve with surprising strength and tugged him toward the door. "Come on," she said. "Mom's inside. Borrowing time." Inside, the community center buzzed with warmth and clatter. Lily led him to a folding table where a woman ladled soup into bowls. She looked up, startled to see Ethan, recognition flickering and then confusion. "Mom," Lily announced. "This is Ethan. He's sad. He needs soup." The woman set the ladle down, wiped her hands on her apron, and smiled. Not the polite smile people reserved for donors, but a genuine one that reached her eyes. "I'm Maria," she said. Any friend of Lily's is welcome. Ethan opened his mouth to refuse, to explain he didn't belong here, but the word welcome sat differently this time. He sat. Maria placed a bowl before him, steam rising, and the first spoonful undid him. It tasted like something remembered. Around them, children laughed. A volunteer strummed a guitar softly, and for the first time in years, the noise didn't feel like an accusation. Lily climbed into the chair beside him and whispered, "See? Fixed a little." Ethan nodded, throat tight. As the evening unfolded, he learned Maria volunteered every Christmas since her husband's death, that Lily collected broken ornaments and glued them into stars, that the center struggled to keep the heat on. He did not say he owned half the city. He did not say his name carried weight. He listened. When it was time to leave, Lily hugged him fiercely. "You can borrow my mom again," she declared. "Tomorrow, too." Maria laughed softly, embarrassed. Ethan stood in the doorway, snow waiting beyond the glass, and felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Not relief, not joy, but the possibility of both. "Thank you," he said, and meant it in a way money never had. Outside, the city no longer seemed so cold. As he walked back into the snow, Ethan didn't know that this borrowed kindness would demand repayment in ways that would change all of their lives. And if this moment touched your heart even a little, if you felt the warmth of a small kindness on a cold night, remember to subscribe to this channel, because stories like this remind us that hope often arrives quietly, through the smallest hands exactly when we need it most.